Welcome. And I will be the agenda for today is that I'm gonna present a little myself a little bit. Some of you, of course, know me, but some of you do not know me. So I'm gonna say a little bit about myself, and then we're really gonna do three things. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about how to even get to grips with defining spirituality and why it isn't important for therapy. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about what are the problems with bringing in spirituality in therapy. And then I'm going to talk about what we can do about it. And I'm going to present two sort of a sketch of two inquiry processes or two reflection processes that I find extremely useful as a way of bringing in spirituality into therapy without imposing any beliefs on clients, without crossing any becoming unprofessional or crossing any ethical boundaries. So this is the agenda, and I hope that we will also have some time for Q&A at the end of it. Sounds good?
Yeah.
Fantastic. My name is Klaus, as you know. I'm the founder of the Sensing Mind Institute, where I offer educations. I have two. One is specifically for therapists, and where we go through these different kind of processes and how you can bring in spirituality and therapy in a sort of a grounded and professional way. And then I have another one, which is and that one is a 5-module education. And then I have another education, which is a 4-year education, which some of the people present have either completed or are close to completing. And I usually say that is for um, serious people who are serious about personal development, because you have to be quite serious about personal development to engage in a 4-year education like that. Um, then I am a psychotherapist. Recently, I have attained that title through through merit, you can say. So I just been doing it for a long time, and now I have become the I'm examiner of a lot of final 4th year exams on different psychotherapy educations here in Denmark through the Danish Psychotherapist Association. Then I've been studying various spiritual forms of development. I've been especially engaged in Enneagram with Claudia Naranjo. Then the Diamond Logos, not the Diamond Approach, the Diamond Logos, which is Faisal Mukaddam's version of the Diamond Approach. And then Buddhism also, I've been very interested in that and studying it. Uh, yes. And then I'm very passionate about building bridges. And I really love building bridges between spirituality, science, and therapy. And within psychotherapy, building bridges between different modalities of psychotherapy. And this is why I love being a examiner for the final exams on these different therapy schools, because then I can go and tap into the Gestalt world and into the CBT world, into all sorts of emotional focused therapy and so on. And I find that it's very interesting to see the connections in that way. So this is my big passion. Good. So that was a bit about me, just so you have a sense of what kind of fish I am. Then when you look at a topic like integrating or building bridges between therapy and spirituality, the first question you have to answer is, what on earth is spirituality, right? Because that's a tough nut to crack already. Because so many people have different definitions and different ideas about what it is not. Is it connected to religion? Is it separate from religion? Is there such a thing as secular spirituality? All these things, right? It's a complicated question. But for the sake of this today, I say, when you look at a lot of the definitions, I think a couple of things they have in common. Usually, spirituality is talked about as a connection with or a direct experience of something greater than oneself, something sacred, something divine, transpersonal, or transcendent. So that's like one aspect of it. The other aspect is that this kind of experience or connection is often seen as having a transformative effect on the individual's state of consciousness, the individual's psyche. So I think that's a good enough working definition of what spirituality is. But I also think that it's useful to take it down to a more concrete level. And so, at a more concrete level, you can say spirituality usually involves um, uh, gaining certain insights into the nature of reality and cultivating certain inner states. And the insights that are often mentioned in different spiritual traditions will be insights like insights into the interconnectedness or oneness of all things, insights into the connection between your true self and the divine, um, maybe insights into the divine presence in all things, uh, insights such as what you normally identify with or take yourself to be is actually not you, insights into the fundamental goodness of all human beings, um, insights into how compassion for others, the connection between compassion for others and personal happiness. Um, what else would it include? Often it also often includes insights into the role you play in the creation of the reality you inhabit. So it sounds a lot of these insights. I hope that this sound familiar. And often in spiritual traditions, you will say, "Well, it's not just about getting it intellectually," and say, "Oh yeah, that sounds like a really this sound true. I would like to believe it." It is more getting the insight in such a way that it affects how you perceive and experience the world. So it's an insight that lands at a deeper level, not just an intellectual level, but at a level where it directly affects how you perceive things. You it's not that you believe in the goodness of inherent goodness of human beings. It's you see it. You see it. Um, and then the kind of inner states that spiritual traditions often talk about cultivating would be states of peace, equanimity, compassion, love, joy, vitality. For those of you involved with the diamond approach, you have all the essences, those kind of inner states. So this is the working definition that I'm going to go with, right? Spirituality is about gaining a certain kind of insights, deeper insights into the nature of reality, and about cultivating and stabilizing certain your access to certain inner states. So I hope that this makes sense, this working definition. And I think therapy, you can probably also do a whole definition of that, but I think most of us here will have quite a good idea about what therapy involves. So how do you bridge these two? I think the second thing is then you can ask the question, well, why should therapists bother with spirituality? I mean, yes, if some clients come to you and they are interested in spirituality, okay, fine. Then this is something that you can work with. But then you're not necessarily a therapist. You might be a spiritual teacher, which is not necessarily the same thing. So why is spirituality important even when you are working with things that are not sort of directly related to spirituality? Maybe you have clients who wants to work with anxiety or low self-esteem or uh, issues, conflicts in their relationships and so on. And I think it's a legitimate question to say, well, why would spirituality be important in those contexts? And I think that there's the answer to that question is uh, a therapist, if a therapist themselves have realized some of these insights into the nature of reality and cultivated these connection to some of these states that they talk about in spiritual traditions, I think that enables the therapist to better help clients achieve transformative results. Also, when when the work isn't directly related to spirituality per se, and of course that's great as a therapist also because it gives you a better reputation, right? And the word of mouth is important. So there's also some self interest in this. And I think some examples would be if you, for example, say that uh, a therapist has a fundamental belief in the goodness of all human beings, um, not just as an intellectual thing, but like I said before, something you see it directly. Then that gives that therapist the capacity to listen without judgment. And I think anybody who's worked with therapy, they know that is an absolute superpower. The more you can listen in an unjudgmental way, in an accepting way, the more clients will um, offer up information very in a very direct and immediate way. And also, y- you will be able to, because you can see the inherent goodness, they start to see the inherent goodness in themselves. And I think if you it's one thing to have the capacity yourself, that's going to benefit the work greatly. But if clients start to see the inherent goodness behind their actions, and in particular behind actions that they might be a little bit concerned about and judge themselves, I think it really makes sense to um, bring that into focus and flag it in a very direct way, because I think that that has a tremendous healing effect to verbalize the insights that give you the capacity to work effectively with clients, because then those clients can get not just what they get from working with the issue that they bring to the therapy, but they can get that extra benefit of gaining those insights that you have cultivated through your own spiritual practice. So I find that that is hugely beneficial to bring into the sessions. So that was one example. I think another example would be one of the insights that we also can talk about is the knowledge that human beings are whole and complete in themselves as they are. That in a sense there is nothing any client that comes through the door believes that they should change something about themselves. That's usually why clients come, right? They have some sort of change project. And knowing that actually, at a fundamental level, there's nothing they need to change. Again, this is something that can really benefit your work because it can inform your work, but it is also something that is worth bringing into the session in an explicit way, because that insight in itself is very valuable. Welcome to Mariam. Good. So this is just a working definition of spirituality as something that has to do with gaining insights into the nature of reality and cultivating certain inner states, and a few examples of why this is useful in therapy, not just as something that informs the therapy and enables the therapist to work more effectively with clients, but also something to actually put words to during the therapy session, because you can clients can benefit from gaining the same kind of insights through their therapeutic work. And yes, so then the next question is, if spirituality is so um, useful in therapy, why is it that many therapists feel a little shy about it or keep it in the background? And I think, and of course, that's not everybody, right? For some people, it is really front and center in their practice. But I think when it's front and center in the practice, you might not be shy about it, but it's still good to understand that there are certain, uh, like by understanding why some might keep it a bit in the background, you can also understand something about if you don't keep it in the background, what might be off-putting to people and why might there be certain people that you could benefit that now won't even talk to you. So I think even whether you are very comfortable with being explicit about the spiritual part of your practice or not, these questions are important to address. And when I spoken with therapists, and the two things that come up the most are one, they fear being perceived as unprofessional, and two, they fear imposing uh, worldviews or beliefs onto their clients, and in doing so, interfering with uh, the client's natural unfolding process. And I actually think that both these concerns are very, very, very valid concerns that should be taken seriously. So, in the world of spirituality, especially in the world of New Age spirituality, there's a lot of fluff, right? There's a lot of ungrounded stuff. And not just New Age. I think also if you go, I know some of you have grown up in more traditional religious circles, and I think there's a lot of problems in that as well. A lot of ungrounded beliefs, peculiar beliefs. I believe that the core of different religions are amazing, but around the core, you have a lot of unhelpful beliefs. So there's the world of spirituality. I find is in a sense in a need of quite a big cleanup. And it's really valuable to have your eyes open and be skeptical. I know in Buddhism, I love one of the things. It's one of my Buddhist teachers once told me that in Buddhism they say, well, they have uh, three authorities, and these authorities, it's a little bit like checks and balances. You have the teacher, you have the text, and you have your own personal experience. And if two of them side against the third, maybe it's because the third, there's something peculiar, right? If your own personal experience and the teacher corroborate something and you say, ah, maybe there's something that needs to be, um, maybe the text needs to be interpreted in a certain way and it can be misread, right? So there's something not quite good about the text. Or if the text says something and your teacher corroborates it and you say, but my personal experience is different, well, maybe be a little skeptical about your own personal experience. We all know that our personal experience lies to us all the time, right? And the same, if the text says something and your personal experience says something, but your teacher says something else, all teachers are human beings, right? They can be off on their own trip, and maybe they have their own idiosyncrasies, and it's valuable to sometimes have a healthy dosage of skepticism towards your teacher. It is certainly something that I always encourage my students and my clients to have. I'm very happy and I frequently have clients who will tell me something like, yeah, Klaus, I know that you're really happy about this process. That's not going to work for me. Let's do something else. And I really invite that, right? Because I'm a human being. I go off on tangents. I have idiosyncrasies like everybody else. So the concern about professionalism and about the ethics of not imposing your worldview on other people, I think those are really valuable concerns to have, and I think that yeah, I appreciate when therapists have those considerations when they before they put something on their homepage and before they become more explicit to think through these things and be aware of those issues. So this was a bit about a working definition of spirituality, why it's valuable to therapy, and what are some of the challenges. And then we come to the third question. And the third question is, okay, so how do we do it? How can we explicitly draw on spirituality in therapeutic work without requiring clients to adopt specific beliefs or worldviews? So we're not imposing anything on them. And I think for me the answer is quite simple. I think the answer is by engaging clients in reflections through that allow the clients to discover spiritual states and insights for themselves, and formulate these in their own words, uh, without being too invested. So we invite clients into these lines of these reflexive processes, but we're not doing it to get a specific result. We're doing it because we know when we invite clients into these, they usually get some of these deeper insights. They connect to some of these deeper states, and we know that that is going to be really a great contribution to the therapeutic process. But we're not aiming for something specific, right? If they sometimes I have people that get amazing and surprising insights, and I just take notes. I go, "This is really, really cool, right? I hadn't seen that, but that's really cool." So it also makes it more fun for you as a therapist, and I'm a great advocate of therapists having fun in their sessions. So by using reflection processes in this way, as I said, it has a number of advantages. It safeguards against you passing on your personal idiosyncrasies to your clients, and I think that's really important. Um, and you can say, well, spiritual insights are insights into the nature of reality. So if you invite people to reflect deep enough about the nature of reality, they should come to those insights. And if they don't, maybe you as a therapist have to reconsider. If your clients consistently don't get to a certain insight, you go like, well, did I get that wrong? Maybe I did. Um, what else is there? Yes. In that way it ensures the ethical boundaries, because it ensures that you don't impose anything on your clients. Um, And I also particularly like that it allows clients to develop their own personal vocabulary to talk about their spiritual insights and states. I have had clients who, so I have explored the Diamond Logos a lot, so I have the vocabulary from that path, Diamond Logos, Diamond Approach. So I have the vocabulary of the different essences. That's one way of talking about the um, different experiences of being, you can say, or of the divine. But there are other classifications. But sometimes when I invite clients to explore and they start connecting to the states, I don't say, "Oh, this is this essence and that's this essence," so that's Uh, I just say, well, what name do you want to give it? And sometimes clients give it fantastic names like, oh, this is the state of Chinese dipping sauce. Great. I call it something else, but if that's what you call it, perfect. The name isn't important. What is important is that the clients to create a prolonged experience of the state and let the state transform the client. And I think that in getting your own creating your own vocabulary for it can strengthen that connection, right? So then later we can say, okay, so the thing that you call this, what do I call it, and what do different spiritual traditions call it, and might there be a possibility of translation? But that's not important in the beginning. And I think, yeah, letting clients develop their own vocabulary, great. And it keeps, as a therapist, it's also interesting. It keeps your mind very flexible because you constantly make these translation between your vocabulary, the client's vocabulary, and so on. And then the other thing about, I think using reflection processes in this way also really ensures professionalism, because the reflection process that I advocate for using to bring in spiritual insights and states, in a way, you can say them as extension of well-known therapeutic processes. Many times, you take a well-known therapeutic process and you just take it 2, 3 steps further, and now you're in the domain of the spirituality. I think the first time I really realized that was when I was introduced to a process called core transformation process. How many know this? It's Connie Ray Andreas core transformation. Okay, wrote a fantastic book on it and so on. The short version of the story was something that we do as therapists is sometimes clients will do something and they're not very happy about. They judge their own actions, right? So they do something and they say, this is not very nice of me, right? Maybe they gossip and they say, well, I don't like that I gossip. Or maybe they don't speak their mind. So they keep their mind to themselves and they say, oh, this seems like I'm not really, I don't stand up for myself and I don't like that I don't stand up for myself. So clients will have behavior that they judge themselves. And one thing that is very common in therapy is to say, well, let's uncover the positive intention behind your actions. So you do it, it might have negative consequences, but the negative consequences are not what attracts you or what motivates you to do it. There is something that you might not be aware of that is the real motivation. Let's uncover what the real motivation is. So this is asking for the positive intention behind the behavior. Very common in many therapeutic modalities. And then Connie Ray Andreas was like, okay, well, then the client says something. Maybe I don't, I gossip because I want to get back at somebody else. But then they say, okay, fine, that's the motivation. But what's the motivation behind that? And what's the motivation behind that? If I just keep going for the deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper positive motivation, where do I get to? And the insight was ultimately they always get to, they want to feel something particular. And what they want to feel is oneness, wholeness, completeness, peace, love, and so on. And now we are already, so by just continuing asking for the positive intention, it can be a path to realizing states that are talked about in spiritual traditions. So that I found super interesting. And because I think that here you have an example of using a well-known therapeutic technique, but just taking it that couple of steps further, and then through doing that, you make it possible for clients to get insights and states that are normally connected with spiritual practices. And so in this book, The Five Nuts, I have basically made a collection of 5 overall processes that can do this. So they are all based in relatively common, uncontroversial therapeutic techniques. And then it's just like, how can you take them a few steps further? And that will give clients profound insights into the nature of reality and experiences of um, presence, of being, of the divine, or whatever, but without you having to call it that. So this is and it also gives you the opportunity to be very explicit about those insights and those states and what the effects of gaining those insights and experiencing those states are on the individual's consciousness and psyche. So I'm going to give you 2 examples. And then I think we're good on time, so I think we'll still have time for some Q&A after this. So there are 2 processes that I absolutely love, and they are complementary. So as I said before, when clients come to therapy, they usually come with a change project. Right? It's very rare that a client come to you and you say, so what do you want to do today? And they're like, I don't want to change anything about myself. I'm really happy, right? There's always something they want to change. Now, they usually formulate that in one of 2 ways. Either there's something that they feel they are missing that they want to get, or there's something that they have which they see as negative and they want to get rid of it, right? That's basically it. And in a sense, those are two formulations of the same. If a client say they feel they're missing something and they want to get something, they're simultaneously saying that they have something they want to get rid of, and vice versa. For example, if a client says they want more confidence, self-confidence, they are implicitly saying that they want to get rid of their insecurity. If a client says that they want to get more peace, they are implicitly saying they want to get rid of things that do not feel peaceful, for example, anxiety. Does it make sense that it's always coupled, the two? Good. So the first process, the first reflection process, I call the process of completion or sensing completion. And that is basically just asking, what is it? It's very similar to the core transformation process. It's saying, okay, great, there, you want more confidence. If you had bucket loads of confidence, what do you think that would make you feel? And sometimes they say, oh, that would make me, that would give me the capacity to sort of go out in life and go after my goals and say, great, okay. If you have zero problem going after your goals, then what's that going to give you? What's that going to make you feel? If you keep repeating this question, at some point people will say something like, I can never predict where it ends up. That's not possible. But I know it ends up with them sitting with a big smile on their face, saying that they feel loved or connected or alive or at peace or something like that. So by repeating this question, like, what is the ultimate goal? What are you ultimately reaching for? And every single time they give you something that isn't a felt sense, you say, great, but what's that gonna give you? So you repeat it and you just take it further and further. It always leads them to realizing some of these states the same kind of states that you realize in deep meditation or after or other spiritual practices. So, yes. And when that happens, I like to take the inquiry a bit further because it shows them something very important about the nature of reality. If you think I have to do X, Y, and Z in order to feel connected, let's say, I need to have the right partner and cultivate the relationship over years and start, form a family, and there has to be mutual love and no conflict, and then I can feel connected, right? And then I ask people to describe that feeling that they're going for. At some point, they're sitting with a big smile on their face, and I can see they're feeling deeply connected now. Then I will ask the magic question, are you feeling connected now? If I time it right, they'll say yes. And then I will say, well, that's interesting. You thought you had to do all of these things to get that connection you were missing, but here it is. I think we found a shortcut. And that's interesting because it shows what they are ultimately reaching for is already present in the present moment. Right? It's already accessible in the present moment. They didn't have to do all these things. They had an idea about a very elaborate plan to get it, but actually it's already present. That's one thing that this experience shows. Another thing that it shows is, why didn't you see that it was there already? One of the reasons you didn't see it was there already was that all your attention was taken by this elaborate scheme. Right? This is another insight that is often presented in spiritual traditions. The reason you don't see that what you are seeking is already present within you is that you're too busy looking for it. You've heard this probably before, right? This simple inquiry, this simple reflection exercise illustrates that, and it gives the client an experience. And I think it would be a missed opportunity if you don't invite the client to at least reflect on whether the experience they just had might show them something about what the thing they're looking for is, and whether they have it already or not, right? So challenging the conception that there is something missing. Yes. Uh, so of course, this was one example, and of course, when you do this process, it's not always very smooth, right? You have to help the client realize what they're ultimately that you have to help them realize that their ultimate goal is a feeling. They don't always know that. They sort of often stop short of the ultimate goal. Um, Sometimes clients will be embarrassed about admitting what their actual desires are. They might find them unrealistic. They might be ambivalent about what they desire, right? Sometimes they feel that there's something suspect about what they desire. Uh, they might have difficulties putting words into the felt sense that they are ultimately reaching for and describing it. Uh, they may sometimes I have clients when I say, well, what is it that you would feel if you got your goal? Sometimes clients will say, I don't know, because I haven't achieved it. So how could I know? Usually I say, well, you must have an idea, otherwise it wouldn't be attractive to you, right? So there are all these things to navigate when engaging in this reflection. And I have a whole chapter in the book just about that. But this gives you an idea of one type of reflection process, which is a pretty common um, therapeutic process. But then when you take it a few steps further, it opens up to this richness of insights and states that are normally connected with spirituality. And it would be such a waste if we're not explicit about it. The other process that I want to briefly mention, I call it the process of taboo, or the taboos, or sensing taboos. And this, the first process, we go the path of what is it you want to achieve and what is it you're ultimately reaching for. The other process, we say, what is it you want to avoid? Let's see. Let's examine what you are avoiding. Many times, and so I will sometimes you will say, well, what people avoid is often things like, some people avoid their anger because they think that anger ruins things, or they might avoid meaninglessness or pointlessness or embarrassment or something like this, right? There are all these states. Sometimes people don't know what the state they're avoiding is. They just know that they're avoiding a certain type of situation. But then we can ask, the reason they avoid that situation is because they think they will feel something and they don't want to feel it, right? Why do you avoid conflict in interpersonal conflict? Well, it's because when the conflict is there, they will feel maybe anger, and they don't want to feel anger, or um, or they feel suddenly life becomes meaningless to them and they want to avoid the meaninglessness, right? So the first part is you identify what's the state you want to avoid. Then I invite people to describe the state with neutral sensory words. Asking people to describe the state with neutral sensory words is a pragmatic way of taking the judgment out of it, because you simply give them a tool that is impossible to convey judgments in. You can't describe something with neutral sensory words and retain your judgments, because the language you give the clients d- do not lend themselves to having judgments. When this happens, usually the client will feel that the state flips, and what they will discover that what they are avoiding in one context is actually the exact same states they are seeking in other contexts. Let me give you an example. Once I was working with a manager. She didn't want to get angry at her employees. She thought it was a sign of weakness and a sign of failure if she got angry with her employees. So she really tried to push aside her anger. And I said, okay, fine. First thing I did is, of course, I said, well, sometimes you get angry with your employees. Of course you do, right? Sometimes you just want to throw them out the window. This is normal. So I normalized it to help her take out the judgment, and then I said, okay, just for fun, tell me what it feels like at a somatic level, the felt sense of anger, using neutral sensory words. And there's a little bit you have to sort of, there's a skill in helping clients describe this. But it was so interesting because he said, okay, well, it feels like a lot of energy, right? A sense of vibration, a sense of heat, a sense of um, expansion actually also. And at some point, you just saw some neurons connecting, and she's like, hang on a sec. When I describe it in this way, it just feels like taking leadership. That's what I'm paid to do. And this is so fascinating how you go into the meaninglessness, and when you describe it with neutral sensory words, you find this peaceful expansiveness. You go into the sadness, and when you describe it with neutral sensory words, you find the humanness and the connectivity. And so this is a very powerful process through which you discover all of the same states as you discover through the process of completion. And once again, when you engage in this process, there's a lot of stuff to navigate, right? Clients can be very fearful of what they avoid. So you really have to hold their hand when you go into the abyss with them, right? uh, Clients can sometimes veil their desire to get rid of something. They say, no, 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 there's nothing I want to get rid of. I just want to embrace it or transform it, because they've listened to too much spiritual teaching where they didn't discover the things for themselves. Beliefs were just imposed on them that this is the right thing to do. But when you then poke a bit, right? Why do you want to embrace states? A particular state. Well, I want to embrace it because then I hope it's going to go away. So you really want to get rid of it. Yeah, okay. So there's something about navigating that clients own up to their desire to get rid of things. Um, and yes, but it's a very powerful process. There's another thing. I think one more thing I want to mention that you have to navigate here is sometimes when you say, what does the meaninglessness feel like? They say it feels really tense. That's not the sensation of the meaninglessness. That's the sense of their defense against feeling it, right? We tense up to not feel something. So many times when you say, what does this feel like? Clients will say, it feels like tension. And then no, they're not feeling the state they're avoiding. They're feeling the felt sense of their avoidance. Yeah. So there's a lot of things to navigate. That's a whole different chapter in the book. But it is a very important and powerful process, because if you do this over and over and over again, clients lose the fear of different inner states. And over time, they come to the conclusion, maybe there's actually nothing bad in me. It just looks bad. And when it looks bad, I push it away, and then it starts operating in isolation. And it's because it's operating in isolation, then it gives rise to problematic behavior. But the state or the thing wasn't the problem. The problem was that I judged it and pushed it away, so it had to operate in isolation. Does this give you a sense how you can take normal, uh, very uncontroversial therapeutic processes, and if you just take them a few steps further, now there is this richness of insights and states to be harvested, which really relate very directly to spiritual work, spiritual transformation. So yes, I think I want to stop here and leave. We don't have much time, but before I do, I promised you a link, so I'll just give you something in the chat here. So I just want to say there are different ways that you can learn more about what I've been talking about. One is you can get the book, and here's a link to where you can get it. And if you type in 5 nuts, you'll get a significant discount. I think, I think 200 Danish crowns. That will mean nothing to most of you, but it's like 2/3 of the price off or something like that. Because I really love this knowledge, and I really want to get it out there. The code works today, but not tomorrow. But feel free to share it with your friends, and if you want. So this is a gift from me to you before for showing up. And then we have a few more minutes, and I'm not in a hurry. I'll of course respect if anybody needs to leave at the top of the hour, but otherwise, let's just do if you have any questions. So Bob said, "Thanks everyone. I have to leave for an appointment. It was very engaged by the contact. I'm very happy about that. And if you have any questions pops up, just ping me a mail. I'm happy to answer that way also." Cool.
I've got a question.
Yes.
With the first example of the completion, you call it complete process of completion. So asking the question, what is it that you want to feel? When they get to the end of that, what is it that they're really wanting? They get to a feeling.
Yeah.
I'm hearing that you're saying that they'll have the experience of the feeling.
Yes.
I'm wondering why that's not necessarily the case. They might just come to like a
Assuming.
thought about
Yes.
um, what is it that's happening in the process
Yeah.
that is going to facilitate their direct experience of that.
Very good question, because it could just be that they answer for sort of like an intellectual standpoint. Well, I want to feel connected, then this is just a word to them. It is again my beloved neutral sensory words. So I say, when if they answer and say I want to feel connected, I will say something like, well, connection can feel like many different ways to different people. What does connection feel like to you if you should describe it using neutral sensory words? And they, because they can't answer that question without going and checking in their felt sense. And when they do, they feel it. But you're right. There's a skill to. I sometimes I think about it as interviewing the client into the state.
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah, thank you.
thanks. Yeah,
So
Andrew.
I guess my question is in terms of how I present my work to others. And so would you be willing to kind of just give us an example of just maybe a few sentences that if somebody asks you, oh, what is it? How is it that you work? That kind of encapsulates this, because I think that's the bit I'm sort of struggling to find my own way.
I'm tempted to say, when you figure it out, tell me.
Okay.
Because it is, yeah. I mean, right now, my sort of catchphrase is being centered therapy. Right. So they say, well, what's that about? And I will say, well, uh, experiencing being in the present moment, it can have profound therapeutic effects. So in a sense, what I do when I work with clients is I help them disconnect their attention from the uh, all their thoughts and emotions and land it in the present moment, and then let that experience work on them.
Yeah. So then they might have questions about what do you mean by being and so on, but then that kind of opens that kind of
Yes,
possibility. Yeah.
this is why I would probably not use being. I would probably, yeah, I mean, I use it in the title, but when I explain it, I more say like having your attention in the present moment. Most people would, especially with the power of now and stuff like that,
Yeah.
right? People go like,
Yeah.
okay, they have an idea that of what that means, and especially if you describe it as um, not having all your attention following your thoughts, your associations, right? Your thoughts and emotions.
Yeah.
So unhooking from that roller coaster.
Yeah. And I suppose in that sense, it's not sort of explicitly spiritual, but it's all implicit in what you're saying. Yeah.
Yes, and it's like I think it's really what concerns me, is how do we make it bring it in an explicit way in the therapy sessions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't, like, you just have an experience that shows to you something profound about the nature of reality. It would be such a pity not to put words to it, because clients might miss it and not draw the conclusion that is right there in front of them.
Yeah. So that's the point at which you can really sort of light that up.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
and I mean, you were through the education, so you know that in the 5 different chapters, I say we go through this process, and then that experience can help illustrate these 5 insights. And then I have
Yeah.
this table with 20 insights that can be supported by the kind of processes, the reflection processes that I present in the book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Are there questions or comments or fantastic? And if you have if there's problems with buying the book with the code, just ping me a mail and I'll make sure that I'm pretty sure it works, but you never know completely, right, with these IT systems. And if any questions or anything pop up in your mind, you're very welcome to ping me a mail. If you're interested in hearing more about the education that's based on the book, then also I'm always very happy to jump on a call with you and we can chat. And so yeah, don't be shy. Just send me a mail. You all have my email. Otherwise, thank you. It was lovely seeing you, and hope to see you again soon. Take care.